Welcome, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning is Rachel Dolezal. She holds a Master of Fine Arts degree from Howard University, where she studied intersection of race, gender, and class in the contemporary African diaspora. She's a licensed intercultural competency and diversity trainer dedicated to racial and social activism. And she's also written a book, and it's entitled In Full Color, Finding My Place in a Black and White World. As we celebrate women during Women's History Month, we celebrate Rachel. Rachel, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So one of the things that you wrote in the book that I thought was so poignant is you wrote, to truly understand someone, you need to hear their whole story. And we've heard so many stories, but we really never heard your whole story. I want to take you back to a little girl growing up in Montana. And that really was the backdrop for a lot of the woman that you've become. Talk about just the stringent religious upbringing and the hard work that you learned as a little girl.
Yeah, so I think that the catalyst for a lot of my activism has been the pain I experienced as a child, growing up in a very patriarchal family that was very religious, and so that was the kind of order of God, and then the man, and then the woman, and then the kids. So being a girl was kind of low on the totem pole because you're in the kid category, fourth down the tier, but also not the boy child. So I felt like it was swimming upstream. I was always trying to earn approval, trying to be good enough, always getting straight A's. It just never seemed to be enough to atone for just being born a girl in that family. And there was no protection from sexual assault. There was no protection of me, of my feelings, and no understanding of really my goals and dreams. And so I buried myself in reading. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have internet, of course, because for those of us, and I don't know how old you are, but like I'm 44. So
I'm older. I get it. I remember.
Yeah, we grew up without internet, right? And I grew up even more of a early 1900s type of upbringing because we didn't have TV. We didn't have any outside influences because that was seen as secular influences. However, I was an avid reader, and that's where I found the connection with kind of people that understood pain, people that had overcome oppression. And those are the stories that I really clung to growing up, were stories of other people who had experienced some kind of repression, oppression, suppression, or depression in their life, and really had found that internal strength to overcome that, and also went on to help others. And so that was the inspiration really for my life's work, which I spent 20 years of leadership in a leadership role in civil rights. And
but before we get there,
yeah.
Rachel, you had to really escape Montana and everything that the culture of your life there. And you talk about reading and just getting so enmeshed in the books. But there was a leap from leaving that patriarchal background that you had grew up in and to really become an educated woman. How does that happen?
So I guess what I was saying is that I feel like I escaped before I left physically. So I was escaping into books. I was escaping into, and not so much escaping, but really just like connecting with other stories that resonated with me and with what I felt. And so when I actually physically left at age 18, I went to Jackson, Mississippi, and for college. And I actually went there because of books. I had read the books of Dr. John Perkins and Spencer Perkins and they were community developers and activists in the South and fighting for equity. And I wanted to join that cause. And so I actually went to the college that Spencer Perkins was the first Black student to ever integrate, Belhaven College. And, I called him up and I said, I'm coming to Jackson, Mississippi. I'm coming to school there. And I would like, I would like for you to be my mentor because I'm a big fan of your books.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really books that got me, through the childhood, but also that got me out of Montana and brought me to Jackson, Mississippi. And there I really found a sense of home and a sense of, striving with other people who had the same causes of social justice and of protecting other people from pain and suffering that were so important to me.
And then so you start out on this quest of really fighting for the voiceless and, trying to bring equity and inclusion. When do you know that this is what you're called to do?
Yeah, I feel like I knew that, again, at a very young age. I just wasn't really able to do that in practice in Montana so much. But I did have a start there because I did advocate very strongly for my younger adopted siblings, kind of stepped into a role of protecting them from and navigating the world for them as babies and as toddlers and as, younger children, in terms of an all white space that they were growing up in, very culturally, philosophically, Eurocentric space. And so I felt like I understood in terms of not just reading history and books, but also just had like an instinctual kind of connection with them. I understood that the situation was one in which they felt alone, and I had felt alone as a girl in the family and as a poor kid in school, and in many other senses, I had felt that feeling of being isolated. And so, for other people who are isolated, especially babies now coming into the family that had that were innocent, that had no motivations or intentions or of anything, these children needed to be protected, needed to have an advocate, and that came naturally to me. And so that kind of was the start of my advocacy work, in a sense, is just being that person that was in between them and even the family, the rest of the family, the extended family and the extended community, to say, no, we're not going to inflict pain on these children, and no, you won't touch their hair, and no, you won't, and to kind of be that in-between person.
That buffer. And you even talk about, feeling in the white world that you were in, and then your parents adopting Black children. You felt how these babies were really ostracized. You felt that. And
right.
You felt that in a real deep way.
I did, and I just felt that connection and really experienced. And I know it's something that comes natural for babies to just trust, But I felt like I experienced unconditional love in a sense for the first time through my adopted siblings, and then again when I went to Jackson, Mississippi with my mentor, who, thankfully he did become my mentor, Spencer Perkins, even though it was hearing from some random girl from Montana that was, like, hey, I'm coming to college there, and can I, can you be my mentor? But actually that relationship did develop, and those were the relationships that really felt the closest to me, where I could actually relax and knew that I wasn't going to be punished for being me. And whether it was with the babies and toddlers back home, or in Jackson, Mississippi, in the Black community where I found a home, where I lived I went to college in North Jackson. I lived in West Jackson. And so, that felt like home to me. And I really grew and developed there, and still have very fond memories. I actually now live in Arizona, but one of my friends from Jackson, Mississippi, the first woman to ever braid my hair there, actually lives here now. And now I do her hair. I do her locks.
Wow.
So, and it's just, some of those relationships have been, for over 20 years. So
indeed. Let's take a break here. But when we come back, we'll have more of Rachel's story in full color, finding my place in a black and white world. Stay on point. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning is Rachel Dolezal. Her book is In Full Color, Finding My Place in a Black and White World. And Rachel, we've been contemplating having this conversation going back and forth for a really long time. And we said, our team said, we just want to celebrate you as a woman during Women's History Month, because I think that out of all the things that have surrounded you, your brilliance, your hard work, your desire, your true heart's desire. And I think a lot of people that talk to you have not read your book from cover to cover like I did. Your true heart's desire is being banished because we just see what we see. We voyeur into the salaciousness of the story. But the deeper story is, as you said in the last segment, you've been working to advocate for people of color since you were a little girl, literally. And then you went on to get educated. Talk about where we are today, because everybody talks about, and I think they've become catchphrases now, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But where are we really from what history tells us to where we are in your mind's eye today?
Well, so, DEI work, I think the diversity part is, we're at a greater rate of diversity is just, descriptive of different kinds of people, in the same place. And so I think today, America by 2050 will be majority non-white. And I think that we're headed toward a future of diversity. What's unfortunate is that I think because we don't know full history, we don't know all of history, it's not being taught currently in schools. And there's kind of like a series of little fires burning over the CRT issue, critical race theory, and other things around the country in K through 12 school. But that controversy really focuses on the power struggle of not, if we can keep people ignorant, then we can perpetuate the inequities. So there's diversity, but there's not really inclusion fully, and there's not equity yet. And so we have to keep fighting. We have to keep pressing forward for equity. And equity just means, it's greater than equality, because equality, you could give both people, say, like you teach a man to fish, he eats for life. If you give him a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach him to fish, he eats for life. But back in Mississippi, my grandpa Perkins always talked about how it matters who owns the pond, because you could teach a man how to fish and he may never eat because he doesn't have access to the pond. And so in a sense of like land ownership and equal representation and curriculum with history perspective, we haven't reached equity in America yet at all. And I feel like in a sense, we're constantly walking back measures while we keep some of the surface issues, whether it's petty issues or just infighting, kind of at the forefront, but we're keeping some of those core equity issues in the background and not really understanding how to move forward with police reform, how to end police brutality, how to undo and rewrite the criminal justice system, how to actually, have greater voter representation. So it's not surprising, but it's kind of frustrating to me to see how this kind of system perpetuates in America, where oppression is just still, racism is still present, oppression is still present. And for my sons, growing up, I have a 27-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 6-year-old now. 3 Black sons that are facing the world on their own terms. And for my oldest, he's in law school in Australia right now. And he has found greater freedom, greater respect as a Black man abroad outside of the United States than here, and that's heartbreaking as a mother, because of course I want to be close to my son, but at the same time, it's, it brings me joy that he's been able to find his place in the world and that he's able to experience life, being seen as a human being, as a brilliant young man, and as a professional, an emerging professional. But it's also kind of sad that
you had to go all the way to Australia to get it. And so
he's gone to Spain, he's gone to South Africa, he's gone to England, he does masters there, and now he's in Australia. So 4 different countries, and so the US is,
so the US didn't provide that for him. And so
no.
After reading the book and all of your challenges, and I believe that those challenges will turn into triumphs at a certain point, I wondered how that affected your kids and yourself, all of the ire and the angst and even the hatred that was spewed at your family. Mentally, I wondered how you've been able to still keep showing up.
Right. I think for my personal journey, it's definitely been a process of digging deep and really being, in a sense, my own hero. I've showed up for other people so many times, for years, and that's been so fulfilling. But I really had to show up for myself. And how
did you figure out how to do that? How to show up for yourself when everybody was saying, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing good. And so how do you dig deep within yourself to show up for yourself?
Well, I think it was a core realization that I can't change who I am. Like, this is who I am. And even if the whole world is against me, I can't be somebody that I'm not, because that's just it. I don't even know how to do that. How do you just like be somebody? It just doesn't even make sense to me to be something that I'm not. And so I had to just continue to be me. And I think another thing that really helped me take care of myself and nurture my body, in a sense, was that ironically, I was 1 month pregnant when everything happened, right? And so I couldn't self-destruct. I couldn't attack myself because I knew that I was growing another life and I wanted to take care of my baby. And I'm, if nothing else, a very fiercely loyal mother. And so I was kind of, in a sense, like Langston really saved me in a way. Like, he came to me at a very beautiful moment and gave me a gift of being able to love myself, because in order to love him, I had to take care of me. And that was really profound for me, because I was losing so much. I was losing my career. I was losing friends. I was losing the life as I knew it, and I thought maybe when I was 80 years old or something, I would write this book and would tell my whole story, and people would be like, what, like you came from, because I didn't talk a lot about my childhood a lot in my career. So I was thinking, okay, well, that would be interesting for people to know at some time in the future, but it doesn't really matter. It's not relevant to what I'm doing now. So, but I'll tell that story someday. But I kind of had it forced upon me in a non-organic way, and so I had to relive a lot of my childhood traumas also, kind of in a quick succession, that I thought I had really healed from. And so I had to face that again as it was being played out on national television. And be there for my sister, my little sister, who her court case was falling apart because, the whole reason why the biological parents went on TV was to discredit me as her key witness in that case. And so taking care of her, taking care of my 2 older sons, and taking care of little Langston that was developing. And I think that took a toll. About 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's autoimmune disease. And basically it's caused by chronic stress and trauma. So like I can no longer eat grains and dairy and gluten and sugar and, nightshades and a whole list of things. I have but in order to take care of my health, I'm still committed to that. Part of it is being a mother. It makes it a little bit easier because by taking care of me, I'm also being able to be my best self for my kids. And I think that is not just a reason, but it's a powerful purpose in a sense that I do love myself and I do have my own goals and dreams, but my kids' future has become my primary dream. And, their happiness is, in a sense, something that springs out of my happiness, So, but it for sure has been tough. It's been tough on Franklin, my middle son. In a way, he was coming of age at that moment. He was 13 and 14, and 15, and now he's 20. So he's definitely been through a lot. It has given him perspective about people. He may be a little more jaded than the average 20-year-old about, a little less trusting, a little more cautious. But he still has that fire inside of him. And I think that's the biggest gift that I could give my kids is like, you don't ever stop. I will show you how to not stop, how to not sit down when it's hard. You have to keep going. You have to, in spite of racism, hatred, obstacle after obstacle in the world that you will face as Black males, you have to keep going and you have to do it for you. You have to love yourself and you also have to, take care of the people that you love. And I think that's probably been the hardest thing for Isaiah and Franklin both is not being able to protect their mom, because they really wanted to take care of me. And I love that. But there's nothing they can really do to stop the outrage, or the only thing they can do, and Isaiah kind of said it best, is that what the world won't let you do, Mom, we're going to go do.
I believe there is still a place for you in the world and your brilliance and your gifts. But as I'm reading the book and as I'm talking to you now, your trauma started at birth. And when you finally look like you're finding your place in the world, and for people who haven't read the book, one of the things that you talk about is how you were always reminded of how hard it was for your mother to bring you into this world and her travail in bringing you into this world. And you show up and you show up as the best form of yourself. And then when your family is adopting these Black children in Troy, Montana, when nobody has any idea about what to do with these kids' hair, how to even allow them to grow in a space that makes any kind of sense, you begin to advocate for them. And then the world comes and says, you're not enough, and I think that you cannot allow people to tell you who you are, because you've done the work and you're doing the work. And the work in education is far greater than anybody wants to talk about, And I just think it's an unfair characterization. And that's another reason we wanted to have this conversation, for many reasons. I think that, we should all be careful when we think we stand, lest we fall, is what Scripture says. And to take away somebody's livelihood, how much longer does that have to happen? Yeah, you're doing braids and you're doing a beautiful job at that, but you have so much more within.
Right.
And I wonder, when that will happen, when you will go back into the classroom and do what you do best, and that is to teach and to advocate.
Right.
You can't quit on that,
Well, and I don't, and I have found ways to kind of, go in the back door and do things behind the scenes, but like to your point, I can't be out front. I can't be standing in a classroom teaching on a salary job yet. Maybe that will come. But, I've been writing grants for nonprofits. I've been, I still find ways to keep doing the work because it's just who I am, and you have to, as you said, you can't let people tell you who you are because you know who you are, and you have to continue. If you're going to be alive, you have to continue to live. And so I also have been working on some initiatives in South Africa with some activists there. And it's, I find ways to stay active and to feed my spirit. But I do look forward to a day when I can do that more publicly and not be, not have it questioned or even doing hair, of course, is questioned, from.
Is that questioned too?
Oh, well, not by my clients, but by the outside, people who don't experience me and, they're like, how dare she braid hair? And that's so offensive and da, 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 da. And, and there's back and forth. My clients will stand up for me and, online on these comment sections and,
I think it's a neat story to tell people how you learned how to braid too, way back in the day.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's the thing is that, braiding is a skill like artwork or, any kind of sports or whatever. You have to practice, right? And so you get good by practicing. You get your timing up and everything. And so I think that, and your finger strength, you get all
your finger strength.
So, like you have to be able to knock out. I got back carpal tunnel when I was pregnant with Langston, actually, and that was a little stressful but challenging because my hands would go numb at night, and I'd just be like, "Please, I need enough feeling in my hands to be able to braid tomorrow." But I think that there's that sense of being questioned that a lot of people experience who are somewhere in between categories, whether it's by adoption or whether it's by just appearance. You look ethnically indeterminate or whatever it is.
Ethnically indeterminate. They just don't know what you are.
People are like, so are you? Like, is your mom black or your dad black or are you mixed or what are you mixed with? All those kind of questions. It's not something that just happens to me. That happens to so many people. And I think it creates anxiety because, if you're kind of forced to emphasize or subordinate different things about your life, you can't show up as your full self because you feel like that's not going to be understood and accepted. And so you either have to choose to be rejected or choose to be yourself and run the risk of rejection, or just kind of subordinate part and just emphasize like, well, yeah, I have a black parent or I don't have a black parent or I'm part Native American or whatever it is. And then that part like, oh, okay, yeah, you're cool. Like, let's be friends. But if you were to delineate everything, then it's like, whoa, I don't know if I want to, be friends with you. So that's the sadness to me of the boxes, of the group mentality, because I really think that society is missing out on not just my skills and leadership abilities, but on a lot of people who have so much to bring to the table, and we're just seeing people as a category and not really understanding like who is Carlette, who is Rachel, who is Franklin, especially out of my kids, Franklin feels very unseen, and misrepresented in the Netflix documentary. And so he always wants to show people like that he has my back and that he, who he is as a person, now that he's 20 years old instead of 13 or
Yeah,
14.
but they were he was a baby.
Right. And he did nothing, he did nothing wrong. He was processing things. And I think it's just the sense of when you're on camera and something's made permanent and then they edit it with a certain slant, and it's hard to live with that, to have something that you said as a teenager be so made so permanent, and that becomes your voice. And then people on that basis say, oh, you didn't have your mom's back or this or that. And it's just like that does not characterize him at all,
right.
So there's that separation then of, okay, this is what the world thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that. We know what society thinks of me and of my kids and everything. But this is who we are. And so in a sense, perception and reputation are what people think of you, but your character is who you really are.
Right.
And that's what you have to cultivate and spend the energy on. And there are so many ways, even if it's around the edges, like I said, and in the, behind the scenes and things that I can't even be public about because it would put other people at risk, in a public relations sense. They would have to do explaining if people knew that I was, writing a program for this, this
mm-hmm.
nonprofit or this company or whatever.
Did you somewhat feel betrayed, Rachel, by those people who weren't able to stand by you, and even today that call on you for your expertise in so many areas? Do you feel a little bit betrayed by those people that can't stand up and say, yes, Rachel is my friend, and I don't have to characterize her ethnicity?
I think on a personal level, if it was just somebody vouching for me as a friend, that would feel like a betrayal, right? But if it's on a professional level, I get it. It sucks. It really sucks for me. But I understand that in order for the work to succeed, whether that is the work of a nonprofit or the work of a cause, that's even why I stepped down, why I resigned from the NAACP. I wasn't, forced to do that.
Right, but nobody said you did anything illegal.
Right.
That you cheated anybody, that you stole anything.
Right.
None of those things.
The thing is, the weight of the opposition was so intense that for me to maintain my title in that position would have been a distraction to the cause. And so I am so loyal to the work and the cause that even if it means that I'm, the head that needs to be cut off in order to save the body or whatever, I will do that. I will cut myself out. And I'm not okay with it in a sense that I don't think it's fair, but I'm okay with it in a sense of it's a compromise because I then still am a part of the work. I still built that team. I still had the largest executive committee that had ever been a part of that 95-year-old local NAACP chapter. And I had brought them out of debt into a $14,000 surplus and moved the office onto Main Street. All the things that I did, still helped the cause, if that makes sense. And
Absolutely.
So for me to step away, maybe the movement can move forward without me. Unfortunately, of course, sometimes that doesn't happen, but that's sometimes the only way for it to work. Like right now, presently, if I'm a part of something, if it's better for the cause itself, for me to not be named, then I'm willing to still do the work as a compromise because I want to, still do what feeds my soul. There's still something there for me, even though there is a sadness with it, but there's also fulfillment in knowing that I'm still active. Mm-hmm. I'm not buried. I'm not going to quit.
You could have said, I'm not going to participate.
Right. Well, and sometimes, my middle son in particular, he's just like, Mom, forget all these people. They're not here for you. Why do you have to, you just be in it for us, and that's it. And I'm like, I am here for you, and your future is my focus. However, I still have a purpose, and my spirit still needs to do certain things. I have to go to the gym to stay healthy. My fitness and health is very important to me. And that's how I take care of myself. How I'm going to take care of my spirit is similar how I take care of my body. And even though, like I said, it was a little happier experience when I could be celebrated. I mean, I was winning awards and, for my leadership and everything just a month before everything exploded. Right. And so, somehow having white parents changed all of that. Right. And then everybody questioned everything I'd ever done.
Right.
But I think a part of that, and Malcolm X's oldest daughter, Ambassador Shabazz, Atala Shabazz, had said this, like, don't forget who you were in May of 2015. Don't forget that woman who was winning those awards and doing the work and being celebrated for it. That's who you are. And moving forward, maybe you will or won't be celebrated. It could happen either way. Maybe people will come around and get it and be like, oh my gosh, we got that so wrong, and welcome back to the family. And maybe that will never happen. Maybe it'll happen after I pass away. I don't know. But either way, I have to continue to be me. I have to honor my convictions and my core values. And those include not just caring for my sons as individuals, but caring for them in a sense of they're also part of a community and of a larger group, and to make the world a better place for young Black men in general makes the world a better place for my sons in particular, and even the cause of my 6-year-old has autism and is nonverbal, and, being in special ed and some of those things, as also being Black in special ed, those intersectionalities, I think are important to advocate for, because those efforts of advocacy affect him and other kids that are like him. So, those are the things that are near and dear to my heart, and will always be, important to me.
As you wrote about your parents and about your upbringing, and then we know your parents were really at the heart of this firestorm that happened. And parents do, we all, as parents, we show up as best we know how. But I wondered if there was reconciliation some sort of way, because you do have kids, you know what I'm saying? And was there, or is there, a coming together after everything that happened with your parents?
No, I don't think there's ever going to be. I don't think that bridge can ever be mended. And it not only was destroyed in 2015 in a irreparable way, but it was kind of a connection that wasn't helpful even before that. So ever since I sued them for child abuse and won custody of Isaiah as my oldest son, that, like, we hadn't spoken since then. That was not only a disconnect from them, but the entire extended family on both sides, paternal and maternal. And so, my paternal grandmother and my paternal grandfather both passed away in the last couple of years. And, there's no invitation for the funerals or anything like that. Like, I don't expect that there ever will be an olive branch. And if it is, it's going to be with conditions and with other intentions because of that religious philosophy and situation that hasn't changed. So, for example, growing up, we were always taught that, like, autism was demon possession. Like, you have to exercise, like it's the result of sin and this and that. Like, I have a child with autism that they will never meet. I never want him to be seen in that way, and he will not be treated in that way. And to me, I protect my kids from that toxic energy. I protect them from people who are, if there's a situation where somebody's being racist toward your child, you would intervene and protect the child from that, and be an advocate. And so in a sense, even if that's your own biological parents, there's that motherly instinct that kicks in, and they won't have contact. And my older two sons and my sister, of course, will never have contact with them on their own terms and out of their own choice. Is what they've expressed to me. Whether that changes or not, that's their decision and their decision to make, because they're adults. But as long as I have a child that is a dependent, then it's my job to protect that child from harm. And I believe that they are still harmful. And so there isn't any reconciliation possible.
Sure. We're out of time, Rachel, but we didn't get a chance to talk about your art, but you have beautiful, beautiful artwork. Are you still drawing? Are you still painting?
Yeah, absolutely. Every month I create new work, and I have it on my website, racheldolezal.com. You can see some of my art in the background.
I was wondering if that
in my house.
If that picture right directly behind you, is that
picture Isaiah? Let me see if I can get out of the way of it. There you go. So I'm constantly creating, and I think that that's a helpful way for me to move energy and expression and things like that. And so I appreciate people who have supported my art. Recently, there was a renowned artist, Jacoby Satterwhite, who had, and some of his friends actually commissioned me to paint a portrait of him as a little kid for his birthday. And he's an adult, of course, now, and very successful, more successful than me as an artist, in the art world of things. But he's a big fan of my art, apparently, and he posted and was just so happy with the portrait. And then it ended up in Art News, ArtNet, an article about an artist painting a portrait of another artist. So it's kind of fun sometimes to be, in a small way, a part of the conversation, even if it's just in a tangent. Like, he's the bigger name, so then it's like I kind of got dropped in there. And that's okay. I just feel like maybe someday people can also celebrate my art. That'd be amazing.
I bet they will.
To do that and do shows again, do exhibitions in person. But for now, it's like my home is kind of an art gallery. So when hair clients come over, they can view it, and the whole world can view it on my website. So,
and give your website again.
Yeah, it's just myname.com. So racheldolezal.com.
There you go. The book is entitled, in full color, Finding My Place in a Black and White World. And people can still get the book, and they can go to your website. And I believe what scripture says, a man's gift will make room for him and bring him before great men and great women. And I believe that your gifts will make room for you, and they will bring you before great men and great women. Without all of the fodder. I believe it's going to happen. Keep getting up.
Thank you. And I would add one other thing, because you did talk about the book so much. My book was chosen for the Amazon Kindle Deal of the Month. And so it's only $4.99 throughout March in Women's History Month for the Kindle version. So
I think it's a true way, if people want to really find out, instead of just going back to what happened in the snippets. I believe it's just as you write in sort of the beginning of the book, to truly understand someone, we need to hear their whole story, and your whole story. And I'm sure plus much more. There are other pieces, but it is beautifully written. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for trusting us with your story.
Thank you, Carlette.
Indeed. Hey, everybody, stay on point. We're back right after this.